Why does the very word death generate fear, and we prefer not to even pronounce it? Saying that death is beautiful, that it is wonderful because we will continue to exist in the afterlife, has no foundation. Reality means seeing death for what it is, an end in which there is renewal. It is a rebirth and not a continuity. Everything that continues decays, while only that which has the power to renew itself is eternal. Hey, this is Phoenix's Way, my friend. Remember to register on the channel and activate the bell to receive all the special episodes. If you only had 1 hour left to live, what would you do? Wouldn't you immediately worry about doing what is necessary to sort out your things, your affairs, to express your last wishes? Wouldn't you perhaps call your family and friends to make them forgive you for the harm you may have done to them, and to forgive them for the harm they may have done to you? You wouldn't give a damn about the claims of the mind and the desires of the world, correct? And if you can do something similar for an hour, then you can also do it for the days and years you have left to live. Try. You'll find out, my friend. What is age? Is it the number of years you have lived so far? You were born in such and such a year, and now you're 15 years old, or 40 years old, or 60 years old. Your body ages and your mind also ages, burdened as it is with the weight of experiences, suffering, and the hardships of existence. A mind in these conditions will never discover the truth. The mind can only find the truth if it is young, fresh, innocent. But innocence has nothing to do with age. Innocence is not something that concerns children. A child may not be innocent. Innocence belongs to the mind that is capable of experiencing without accumulating the slightest residue. It is inevitable that the mind must experience. He must inevitably react to everything he perceives, to the river, to the sick animal, to the corpse being cremated, to the poor workers dragging their loads, to the torture and suffering that are part of life. A mind that did not react to all this would be dead, but she must be able to react without falling prisoner to the experience she is having. Tradition, the memory of experiences had, the ashes of these memories make the mind age. Only the mind that dies every day to the memory of yesterday, to all the joys and sorrows of the past, is fresh, innocent, ageless. If there is not this innocence in you, whether you are 10 years old or 60 years old, you will not discover awareness. We are afraid of dying, my dear. To put an end to the fear of death, we must come into contact not with the image of death created by thought, but with that state which actually belongs to death. We must actually try to feel this state, otherwise the fear of death will never end, because the very word death generates fear, and we prefer not to even pronounce it. But is it possible to come into contact with the fact of death while being healthy, normal people, capable of observing and reasoning clearly, of thinking objectively? As time passes, the organism wears out, diseases weaken it, and eventually it dies. But now, if we are still healthy people, we want to find out what it means to die. This is not a morbid desire. Perhaps by discovering what death is, we will also understand what life is. Life for us now is torture, endless confusion, a continuous contradiction. We live in conflict, in suffering, in disorder. We go to the office day after day, always experiencing the same pleasures, the same pains, the same anxieties, the same uncertainties. We feel our way forward. This is what we call living. By now we are used to it, we accept it, and by living like this we grow old and die. To discover what it means to live and what it means to die, you need to come into contact with death. This means that we must end everything we have known every day. We must put an end to the image we have of ourselves, of our family, of our relationships. It is an image constructed by our pleasures and the relationships that bind us to society and everything else. This image definitively disappears the moment death occurs. The fear of death. Why are you afraid of death? Maybe because you don't know how to live. If you knew what it meant to live in all its fullness, would you be afraid of death? If you loved trees, the sunset, the birds, the leaf that broke off from the branch. If you realized the poor people, the tears shed by so many men and women, if there really was love in your heart, would you be afraid of death? Don't let me convince you. Let's think about it together. There is no joy in your life. You are not happy. Your sensitivity is not alive to everything you see surrounds it. This is why you come to ask what will happen to you when you die. For you, my dear friend, living means suffering. And that is why you are interested in death. You believe that maybe you will find happiness when you die. This is a huge problem, and I don't know if you really want to address it. At the basis of all this, there is fear. The fear of dying, the fear of living, the fear of suffering. If you don't understand what generates fear, and if you aren't able to get rid of it, it doesn't matter much whether you live or die. Now, I'm interested in investigating how one can free oneself from fear. That is, from the fear of losing my family, my reputation, my qualities, my bank account, my desires, and so on. You can say that fear arises in consciousness, but your consciousness is made up of your conditioning, so it's a product of what you know. What do I know? Knowledge means forming ideas, having opinions on this or that thing, feeling a sense of continuity within what we know. For example, there is the fear of pain. Physical pain is a nervous reaction, while psychological suffering arises when I attach myself to something that satisfies me and that I'm afraid of losing. I'm afraid someone will come and take away what I'm attached to. As long as I accumulate psychological acquisitions of various types without particular disturbances, I am safe from psychological suffering. This means that I am an accumulation of acquisitions, of experiences that act as protective elements aimed at preventing any serious disorder. In fact, I don't want to be disturbed, so I'm afraid of anyone who threatens these protections. So, my fear comes from the known and is connected to all those physical or psychological acquisitions that serve me to protect me from pain and allow me not to suffer. Knowledge also helps you avoid pain. Just as medical knowledge allows us to avoid physical suffering, so our faiths allow us to avoid psychological suffering. This is why I am afraid of losing what I believe in, even if I don't really know what it is that I believe in, because I have no concrete proof of its reality. When we talk about awareness, we mean something that is outside the realm of the mind. This is obvious. Now, is the ego awareness? If it were, it would have to be beyond time, so it could neither be reborn nor continue. Thought cannot go beyond the mind because it takes place in time and is based on the past. Thought is a continuous movement. It is the reaction of the past, so basically it's a product of time. The ego that thought can take into consideration is part of time. It cannot be free and therefore has nothing spiritual. This is evident. The ego is just a thought process. And you would like to know if this thought process, continuing even after the disappearance of the physical body, will be born again, reincarnated in a physical form. Let's delve into the question a little further. Will someone who has continuity ever be able to discover reality which is beyond time and measure? Can that ego, which is an entity linked to a thought process, ever renew itself? If he cannot do this, it means that the thought must necessarily end. Isn't what continues fundamentally destructive? Everything that has continuity can never be renewed. As long as thought continues, feeding on memories, desires, experiences, it will never be able to renew itself. Therefore, precisely because of its continuity, it will not be able to know reality. You may be reborn 1,000 times, but you will not touch evil. You will not know reality. Because only what dies, only what ends can be renewed. Do you know what it means to come into contact with death? Die without discussion? Death, when it comes, certainly doesn't start arguing with you. To meet her, you must die every day to your anguish, to your loneliness, to your relationships to which you are so attached. You must die to your thoughts, to your habits, to your wife, because only in this way will you be able to see your wife for the first time. You must die to society, because only in this way will you be able to feel like new, fresh, young human beings, capable of looking at everything that praises them. But you cannot meet death unless you die every day. Only when you die is there love. A fearful mind is incapable of love. He has his habits, his sympathies, he tries to be kind, but all this remains on the surface. Fear generates pain, and pain is time and thought. To end pain, you must come into contact with death while you are alive. You must die to your name, to your house, to your property, to your cause. Only in this way will you find the freshness, youth, clarity that brings you they feel they see things as they are, without the slightest distortion. This is what will happen when you die. But we have limited death to a physical fact. We know very well that the organism will sooner or later stop functioning and its end will come. It's logical. So we invent a life that goes beyond the daily anxieties, our insensitivity, the mountain of problems we have created for ourselves, the stupidity of the existence we have accepted. What we would like to continue to live we call soul, and we say that it is the most sacred thing that exists, that it is part of the divine. But all this is still part of your thinking, and therefore has nothing to do with consciousness. This is your life. This is how you have to live every day, remaining close to death. Because only in this way are you in contact with life. If you enjoyed the trip, my dear friend, share with anyone you think needs this message, activate the bell, and leave me a comment about your experience. In the end, there is renewal. Only death can allow something new to exist. It is not my intention to try to console you. I'm not telling you something that you must believe or accept intellectually, because you would use it to find consolation, as you do with your belief in reincarnation or in the continuity of life after death. The fact is that what continues cannot be reborn, cannot renew itself. Only by dying every day is it possible to renew and be reborn. This is immortality. In death there is immortality, not in the death that you fear so much, but in the death of all the conclusions you have reached, of the memories, of the experiences with which you have identified. Your ego is the result of these identifications. In the death of the ego, minute by minute, there is eternity, there is immortality, there is something that must be experienced. There's no use talking about it, discussing it, just like you do about reincarnation and things like that. When you stop being afraid because every minute brings with it its end, and therefore a renewal, then you open yourself up to the unknown. Reality is not something that can be known, and even death is something that cannot be known. Saying that death is beautiful, that it is wonderful because we will continue to exist in the afterlife, has no foundation. Reality means seeing death for what it is, an end in which there is renewal, rebirth, and not continuity. Everything that continues decays, while only that which has the power to renew itself is eternal. This is Phoenix's way.